Last one, everybody. Funny will be ready for. Jamie, best man.
See you later. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamie, and I am the best man. Or as Greg so rightly put it, upon appointing me the role, the best of a bad bunch. It's crazy. I'd like to point out before I start this speech that absolutely everything I'm about to say is true, apart from the stuff that Barney told me, which is not only true, but funny. I'm unable to, I'd just like to point out that the limitations of doing this on a boat, I'm unable to provide visual aids for these anecdotes, so it's time for an imagination. On the plus side, if anyone heckles me, I can ask you to walk the plank. The shorter members, watch that. Yeah, you too. I've had the pleasure of knowing Greg for the majority of my life. Indeed, one of my earliest memories of secondary school was whilst being herded along the corridor in the hourly scrum between lessons, seeing the sad-faced, scrawny child that I would later call friend trapped helplessly between two doors. I saw his face pressed lifelessly against the glass, resigned to the fact that it would remain there for the next few minutes. I remember thinking, this is big school now. I may be scared, wearing clothes 17 sizes too large, and not able to recognise my classmates amongst the seething mass of aggressive faces bearing down on me. But at least I'm not that guy. In the earliest stages of our school life, I didn't really know Greg that well at all. He was merely that funny guy from Spanish class. It was this that made me feel a natural animosity to him before even meeting. Upon first communication, I was struck by his explosive temper and overwhelming sarcasm. In short, I didn't like him. However, shortly afterwards, I found out he had a famous uncle. So, before long, we were firm friends. University and even London life together. Heather, I'm eternally grateful for you for finally taking him off my hands. Now, I don't want this speech to be a turgid trudge through exciting Micro Machines tournaments and arguments about Red Dwarf that peppered our friendship. Instead, I'd like to focus on three key attributes that I feel that define Greg as the man we know and tolerate today. His determination, his resourcefulness, and his agility. I thought that might get a laugh. Let's start with Greg's agility. Now, those of you who know Greg, and indeed the lucky few who have only just clapped eyes on him, may think I'm being facetious in using such a word to describe him, but I can assure you I'm not. In terms of physical dexterity, Greg is one of the most cat-like human beings. I cite, for example, an incident where Greg prevented his face from landing on a booze-soaked floor of Bannigan's by rapidly positioning an empty pint glass between forehead and Who else contort themselves in such a way, mid-pissed-up stumble, excuse my language, into such a death-defying position? Admittedly, the event did leave Greg with a large circular bruise, which I think like a masochistic Patrick Moore impersonator. The alternative could have been much more sticky. Greg's agility isn't merely physical. Anyone who's ever been on the receiving end of one of his cutting comments can testify. Mr. Dow's wit is as quick as his feet when the DJ plays Rush. Few who have been spared his barbed tongue is capable of inspiring tears of laughter as it is tears of woe. And it's with this facet of his personality I come to our next point of notice, Greg's determination. For as long as I've known him, Greg has been very forthright in his opinions. As a precursor to writing this speech, I asked my fellow staggers for a few insights into the world of Dow, and it was his brother Barney who summed up Greg's determination as follows. I've never seen him more determined than when in the midst of an infuriated rant. Popular targets include Boris Johnson, yuppies, Chelmsford, and generally other people in the world around him. Fair summary, I'm sure you'll agree. Other examples of this resolve can be found in his views on books, movies, TV, conspiracy theories, quiz team answers, quiz team names, quiz team attendance, politics, space travel, planes, trains, automobiles, the film Planes, Trains. basketballs, comics, and Big Brother contestants. In short, he likes a rant. However, don't get me wrong, Greg's overcharged aggro doesn't make him an overwhelming grump, mainly because of his other key attribute, his resourcefulness. Despite the world around him often causing him utmost displeasure, Greg's mood is never less than chipper. You know the saying, when the world gives you lemons, make lemonade? Well, in Greg's case, when the world gives him lemons, he fires the lemons back with a witty one-liner, chuckles to himself about how funny he just was, laughs at the world for being rubbish at giving gifts, and then plays with a cat. It's this unrelenting, self-contained enthusiasm that I begrudgingly admire in Greg. When an episode of a comedy fails to make him laugh, he'll simply construct a verbal review so cutting, the show becomes funnier by proxy. When a hike from coast to coast is beset by every form of precipitation known to man, he'll simply continue to sing Dame Shirley Bassey's hit Goldfinger until that's the most irritating part. When the DJs at the silent disco we attended on the Stag Do didn't play any songs he enjoyed, he simply removed his headphones and belted out Journey to anyone within the crowd. If that's not resourcefulness, I don't know what is. As I mentioned before, I sent a brief Greg-based survey around the Stag Group contingent prior to writing this speech, and one of the questions was, which 3 words would you use to describe Greg? I thought it might be fit to disclose the answers to you, dear guests, and particularly to Greg's new family, in order to let you know what his peers really think of him. But there's a nice one to start with. Special little guy. A nice one to follow as well. Intellectual, funny and happy. But I wouldn't expect anything else from Will, the nicest man I know. Outwardly self-assured was another. It's one for psychoanalysts, I think. I did receive 3 variants on the same theme. A beardy weirdo, beardy, weirdy, wonderful, and jolly and hairy face. Which, alongside a comparison with Cornish funny man Jethro, marks an obvious predilection for Mr. Dow's occasional facial topiary. One entry was simply Greg Lawrence Dow. Accurate, but not really what I was after. A particularly creative entry was in the form of an acrostic. Gregarious, rotund, eclectic, generous. 10 out of 10 for imagination, 2 out of 10 for maths. Finally, my personal favourite was a 3-word description from the one of the group who's known him the longest, Barney. Secret Boyzone fan. I'd like to add to that, if I may, though, my own 3 words that sum up my feelings for Greg. My best mate. Yeah, this is the soppy bit. To be serious just for a moment, I feel deeply privileged on a daily basis to be part of a friendship group that's bursting at the seams with talented, funny and wonderful people. Greg's one of them, by the way. In my life, there's no one else who can wind me up quite like him. Put me in my place with such ease and bruise my ego with such aplomb. Yet we actively enjoy spending time together. I thought I knew Greg inside out when we were at uni, but I discovered another side to him when he did the most important, most inspired, and in my opinion, smartest thing he's ever achieved in his whole stupidity-filled life. Met, wooed, and finally wed Heather. I remember very clearly the moment I knew that Heather was going to be a very important person in Greg's life. We were just up the hill at the Jolly Sailor. We'd gone out for a drink in our break from uni. I expected this usual series of comedic jibes, targeted micro-reviews, and ale swilling. Instead, I was presented with an empty pub bench, whilst Greg chatted endlessly to a girl on his mobile. I remember finding this odd for several reasons. One, because in the past we'd all been privy to excessive rants about bemoaning relationships, girls, and mobile phones. 2, because Greg never spoke to anyone on the phone for longer than 30 seconds. And 3, because earthquakes couldn't separate Greg from a pint of Malden Gold. Upon returning to the table, he told me he'd been speaking to a girl from work called Heather, and that he really liked her. And when I met her, I really liked her too. And when she met all of our friends, we all really liked her. And we actually liked Greg more when he was with her. Indeed, like most people in this room, even those I'm sure have only met her fleetingly, I absolutely adore Heather. Generous, giving, and a joy to be around, she inspires one of my best friends to be even better. Quite simply, I think they're the perfect couple. Greg's mental agility, that's where your thoughts of the physical, countered by Heather's speedy scouse wit. His situation-twisting resourcefulness scuppered by a single stern look. His relentless, determined ranting rendered obsolete by her eternal sunny disposition. I feel honoured beyond belief to be the best man at their wedding. And I not only wish them a long and happy life together, but hope for them to remain an important part of mine. And with that, I think there's nothing else to do than propose a toast to Greg and Heather. Raise a glass if you've got them, or just your hands.